It's just bonkers. What the fuck? Alright, so everybody listen up. Today's lesson is energy management. Basically, it is the fundamental for paramotoring, in my opinion, that is. Wing control, energy management. Those are the main things when it comes to being safe on a paramotor. You have to know how much energy you have and basically where exactly it can get you. If you have too much energy, you have to do something with it. You can't just go straight. So if, for instance, you go for a hard left turn on a spicy wing, or even just some of your less spicy wings, you still have energy to deal with. And based on how much energy you have dictates whether or not you actually have to take evasive maneuvers or not. So that being said, if for instance I turn left hard, I drop towards the ground. Okay, so now I have to do something with my energy. I'm going to go for a right turn. And I'm going to bleed it off with a slow right turn. There you go, back at flying straight. Let off the brake, you're flying normal again. The more energy that you build, the longer your turn will be to bleed off the energy. Alternatively, you can also go for flying straight, but then you will have a large pitch pendulum maneuver, porpoising they call it, that you will have to deal with. In my experience, I find it much more comforting to just bleed it off in a turn for a number of reasons. Because to know exactly how much speed you're going to have and how much energy you're going to have will dictate how hard your wing will shoot if you go for flying straight, and that will dictate how much brake pull you have to do to stop that wing from overshooting you, leading to a frontal collapse, or worse possibly as you land in your own paraglider. So, that being said, I'm not going to teach you how to stop your wing from flying too far forward if you decide to come out straight. However, what I will say is you want to jab the brakes hard just as soon as your wing gets to being about overhead, but you have to stop it before it gets there. If you're too late, well, you're too late. If you're too early, you risk stalling it behind you and not letting it fly again, because the problem is you will reach a point where you're actually in almost a stall position, and then your wing will surge forward to regain energy to fly normally. It is at that point that you have to stop it in the correct position and not let it overshoot you. But that is much more easily said than done. And if that's something you want to practice, I would highly suggest doing it in an SIV course, or at least practicing it on a very small scale with small amounts of energy and on a rather safe glider. So, if you're wanting to practice energy management, which I would highly suggest you do, this is something that you should know well before attempting to do wingovers or any form of dynamic maneuver that builds a lot of energy in the wing. It's really just good practice because it applies to so many situations. The entire sport is really about energy management. Now, if you're just flying an A or B glider around and you don't ever decide to try to get wild to where you're building any energy, you don't really have to worry about it. But if you want to do wingovers or sats or barrel rolls or really anything that's a kind of more dynamic maneuver, it is something I would highly recommend you do. And what I would suggest is to go up high, get yourself a good amount of elevation, 3,000 feet, something like that. Practice up there where you have lots of room to fix whatever mistakes you may encounter. The basic idea is, all right, if we're going left, it goes into a dive. All right, so we got a little bit of energy. We go right. We build a little more energy. It goes dives. All right, so say we don't want to go straight. We got to do a turn. And you're just going to use that same brake until you come out to straight. Basically, I'm not moving it. Okay, now I'm up on my brake. I don't know if you noticed that, but I held the brake. And, it's going to differ based on your wing. So depending on how your wing reacts to brake inputs is going to dictate how much brake pull you do to maintain that turn. The idea is, depending on how much energy you have, you just want to level off. So your idea is you're not losing elevation, you're not gaining elevation. You're probably going to be losing some elevation, but you don't want to be gaining elevation. If you're gaining elevation, you didn't turn hard enough. So the idea is you drop down, you get lots of energy, and then you go to bleed it off. You instantly turn, you try to get yourself horizontal, and just hold that brake until it naturally pendulums itself back straight. Then you can let off that brake. It's a very simple maneuver. There's not a lot to it. Sometimes you may need to use a little bit of your opposite hand brake, but generally speaking, it's not necessary. All right, so I will show you again. Make sure there's nobody below me because I'm going to lose elevation. All is clear. So I would suggest start off with just a simple quarter turn, 45 degrees. So here we go, or 90. So you got a 90, well, it's closer to a 180. And we got energy, and we pull brake, and that's all we need. Let it ease up. See, we're just holding the brake still there. Now, as soon as it comes back, and we're no longer, you can feel yourself, as soon as you start to sway back down, that's when you ease up off the brake. If you continue to pull it, as you can see, it started to pull me to the right some more. But you'll bank, and then as soon as that energy bleeds off, you'll pendulum back to flat. That's when you let off your brake. As soon as you're back to flat, let off your brake, fly normally again. Practice this up high, get good at it, and then I would suggest giving yourself some kind of a reference point that isn't just the ground to practice it, to get it more dialed. That's where you might have to start using outside brake to perfect it, and you might actually want to use power depending on what you're trying to do. Now, if you're trying to do a slalom type stuff, very much want to practice that up high. It's a dangerous activity. That's the best way to slam into the ground, is by being close to the ground that you're going to slam into and having a mess up. If you have an engine failure, you definitely have to know how to get yourself out of that. You'll have to go and gain a little bit of elevation by going flat, but just remember, if you're really close to the ground, you got to make sure you can get above that ground, then get yourself into a landing position. So that is something you have to take into consideration. Other than that, really practice it. Just practice it a lot, It's something that is such a good thing to know how to do, and it is definitely the precursor to any dynamic activity. If you're not good at energy management, get good at energy management, and then move on to bigger things, wing overs, etc. That's about all I have for you today, guys. If I think of anything else, I will add it in, but I'm going to go for a flight here. I'm going to say hello to this guy because he has pulled off on the side of the road just to, I'm assuming, enjoy the view of us flying around. So I'm going to go say hello. I don't have a horn.